This week on The Real Buffs, peace is our profession. Dr. Strangelove coming up next. Hit the trailer.
Attack!
Russia. Oh. Base.
10 females to each male.
Coca-Cola machine.
Fluids.
The Doomsday Machine.
Blast off!
Welcome to the Real Buffs podcast. I'm your host, Charlie.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we are looking at the classic 1964 film from Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. So why we did this movie is that this is actually celebrating its 60th anniversary. It came out at the end of January in 1964. And with Valentine's Day, we thought, why don't we stop worrying and just learn to love the bomb? Also, just with what's going on in the world recently, too, as of the time we were recording this, tension's pretty high with Russia right now and, nuclear capabilities in space being talked about. And we're also about to hit the 2-year anniversary of Russia invading Ukraine. So just looking at this movie, some things, the more things change, the more they stay the same 60 years later.
That's right. Time is a big flat circle.
That it is. And you know what, Matt? The Earth is flat, too. I don't know if you knew that.
It is.
Yeah,
It sure is.
I've been told that on TikTok, so I guess I got to believe that.
Kyrie Irving told me it once, so he's never wrong. Sports athletes know everything.
He's a genius. Smartest guy in the room right there, Kyrie Irving.
Obviously.
So yeah, that's why we wanted to do this movie. Thought it'd be fun. It's actually the oldest movie we've done so far, so we'll see if that holds up. But yeah, let's get into the ChatGPT summary here. So Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, is a satirical black comedy film directed by Stanley Kubrick, released in 1964. The movie is a Cold War satire that explores the fear of nuclear conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. Here's a brief summary. The story revolves around an unhinged U.S. Air Force General Jack D. Ripper, who orders a nuclear strike on the Soviet Union without proper authorization. The plot unfolds as various characters, including President Merkin Muffley, attempts to prevent the impending nuclear apocalypse. One of those notable characters is Dr. Strangelove, a former Nazi scientist and nuclear weapons expert who provides darkly humorous insights into the potential consequences of nuclear war. The film also features multiple roles played by Peter Sellers, including the president, a British officer, and Dr. Strangelove himself. As the situation escalates, the film combines satire, absurdity, dark humor, to comment on the absurdity of the Cold War era and the potential catastrophic consequences of human folly. The title character, Dr. Strangelove, becomes a symbol of the dangers posed by scientific and political hubris. The film is praised for its sharp wit, memorable characters, its commentary on the nuclear arms race, and it is considered a classic in the satirical genre and is often cited as one of the greatest films ever made. I think Matt might have some issues with the fact that saying right there, that it's one of the greatest films ever made.
Sharp wit, memorable characters. Christ, I couldn't tell you anything I remember from this movie. It was the longest hour and a half of my entire life.
I will say this. The pacing of it is one of the things that I have what's aged the worst, because it does.
I think that's why I didn't like it, honestly. It's like the pacing was just so awful, and it didn't let me ever really actually get into the movie.
I understand that. It does. It feels like a long hour and a half, mainly because we're staying in one room. There's not a lot of quick shots or anything like that. And this is where I start to attribute that to a little bit. I think, just going to throw this out there, Matt's most hated movies on here have been some of the older movies that we've been doing. So we've got a little bit of an ageist on our hands here in Matt, guys.
Pretty much.
Well, I mean, I get that, though, too, because the older movies, they tend to be a little bit slower. Not as much camera movement, not as much quick cutting as you start to get into like the 80s and the 90s, and with the proliferation of MTV and video, music videos and everything like that. You do start to see a different type of pace in movies a little bit later in the century as opposed to earlier in the century. And also it's a little bit easier for you to have a static camera at that point. You don't have to worry about moving the camera as much, and it's a lot more cost effective and all that. So yeah, I totally get that. And I think that sort of, you have to have like a trained sense to understand that when you're going into something. So that's where I get it. Like sometimes older films, like they don't. And I think modern audiences sometimes do have a hard time going back to them because they're a little bit slower. So I totally get that part of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I think it's this. I think it's one of those that might be like a slow burn, because we're about to dive into what's our relationship with this movie, where we were when we first saw it, where I was when I first saw it, and I kind of agreed with you, Matt, is that I saw this when I was 17 in high school for a film class. It was cool. When you were seniors or juniors, we had like a film class. It was brand new. We were like the pilot.
Oh yeah, I took one of those too.
Yeah, we were the pilot class, and I was like, oh, cool. Like I get to watch and read about movies. Like I love doing this shit. So I took that. This was one of the first ones we looked at, and I had a hard time to it. I think at that time I was 17. I was starting to get into it, and I'm like, oh, great. We got to watch these old movies that are black and white, and I sort of didn't have that appreciation for it or anything like that. So yeah, I may have dismissed it at the time, but I think my appreciation for it grew over time, and I started to notice things, and I just some of the lines in here I think are what aged the best. I think like the writing in this is just amazing, and Peter Sellers' performance and everything like that. But I mean, so I think I say that all just to say that I think this is a movie that if you're not used to it, some of the old school movies, and you don't have that sensibility already to them, then it might take a while for you to warm up to something like this.
Yeah, you're right, because I watched it yesterday for the first time ever. I never watched it before, and I knew, I've heard of it. I've seen like some snippets of it here and there, but I've never watched it. And maybe it is the fact that if I had watched this as a teenager, I think maybe I would have appreciated it maybe more, because maybe there's something about like the further you get away from styles of movies like this where it's very dialogue heavy. I don't think I don't need action every 5 seconds, but if there's large swaths of like 5 minutes at a time of just exposition sitting in a room and talking about like, my little monkey brain can't just sit there and it just poof kind of disappears. And maybe that's just because I have ADHD or something. I don't know. And it was just a slog, man. It was, oh my God, this movie. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm the problem, because everybody seems to think this is a great satire and things like that. And there was like little bits of humor here and there, primarily with the British general and things like that. But overall, oh my God. Ugh, if I never have to watch this movie again, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Well, there's your problem right there, Matt. You didn't snort any Adderall before you did this. I was doing at least like a couple bumps.
That's true. That's true. Like, it just speaks to like movies these days, man. You have to have something engaging, and I'm just like, if I have to hear people talk, it felt like I was in a military briefing, which we all know how those are. The two of us do. Oh,
I know. We're gonna dive into that, because like obviously both of us being in the military and Air Force guys, like this is what it's really surrounded by, is like the Air Force. So I was like, I that's part of the reason why I was like, I think Matt will appreciate this because he's an Air Force guy. So yeah, I mean. Well, first off, let's dive into that. How do you feel about the portrayal of the Air Force and just the military in general in this film?
It made it seem like, I mean, the one thing that they got right was the very big lack of communication and like the hubris of some of these, officers, right, who think they're all in the right or they're too good for this or something of that nature and trying to always bully their way around, and their, dick's bigger than yours, basically. I got that right.
Oh, we'll talk about the dicks thing coming up soon. Because
it definitely got that right. I thought it was like hilarious. Watch like the green screen background there of the B-52 and flying through. I was like, oh man, but it was cool. Like seeing the planes that I've been around up close, climbed around, and everything like that. Like the KC-135 still in service, and the B-52. Like that was cool, and some of the classic navigation styles and things like that, and the politics side, like nothing has changed from the political standpoint and things of that nature, and the hubris again. So it really has captured that essence for the most part, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, you were closer to that than me in my experience in the military, so you would know more about it, I think. I was a medical guy, so I was kind of insulated to the hospital, and that was really it. So I really don't have, and I wish I could speak to that experience more, but I'm going to leave you as to be the resident expert for that. So, all right, cool. Moving on here, we're going to have a deep discussion about satire because that's really like what this movie is and what this movie is known for. It's known for being one of the greatest satires of all time. And honestly, I'll point you to this YouTube video that does a really good breakdown on cinema satires. They just do great videos in general. Go to Cinefix on YouTube if you're looking for lists or anything like that. They do a great job, and they do one where they talk about their top 10 satires, and not surprisingly enough, Dr. Strangelove is on that list. So let's dive into like what is a satire for some of our audience who might not know or might be confused with it. So Oxford Dictionary defines a satire as a poem, or in later use, a novel or film, or other work of art which uses humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize prevailing immorality or foolishness, especially as a form of social or political commentary. So that's really what satire is at its core. And when we look at some of the greatest satires of all time, like there are some of the best movies of all time and some of my favorites. And, I've compiled this list here, man. Obviously, this does not include every satire in American cinema history or just cinema history in general. But there's a long list of amazing satires over the course of the last 100 years that we've been making movies. And certainly I think they even go back to some of the silent era movies, not just when talking became a big thing in films, but yeah, I mean, look at this list that I've compiled here. Like, you've got some of the big ones. You've got The Network in 1976. This is Spinal Tap. Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. Heathers, which we recently, we were talking about on our Mean Girls podcast. A lot of foreign films that are on there too. La Dolce Vita, Fight Club, The Truman Show, Borat, RoboCop, Starship Troopers, They Live, The Lobster, Get Out, The Graduate, Nashville, Boogie Nights, Galaxy Quest, great one, The King of Comedy, The Player. I mean, some of these are just like some of the best movies in cinema history. So, Matt, let's dive into it. We're going over this list right here. I figured this would be a good enough list for you to maybe figure out like what you're going to put on your Mount Rushmore for satires, but you got what's your top four if we're looking at this list, or if you have something that's off the list too, like go for it.
Now, to be fair, I have seen The Graduate, and I thought that was a pretty good movie.
There you go. That's a 60s movie. And
it's
and
a 60s movie, see?
Yeah, I think maybe that speaks to the point of the style because, that movie is very much influenced by the French New Wave, and that's where they're doing a lot of different things with the camera and everything like that. So the pacing is completely different. So.
It is, yeah. I have seen that movie, man. Number one, I'm definitely gonna put The Truman Show on there. Just number one, it's Jim Carrey, right? And he kind of shows a different style within his acting, but it's very well paced. It's very smart in the way that it's written and the riffs that they go off on that. So I really like that one. Man, it's really hard to choose four. I really love Django, man.
Yeah.
There's so many good lines and quotable lines there. That's another good one for me.
Yeah, you know, Tarantino and his humor, like
and Jamie Foxx and oh man, you know, so that's a good one. As for the other two, this is really hard because I love movies like The Office. That's a really good one. American Psycho's another really good one. Zoolander, Dogma, you know, Monty Python. They're all good. I'm gonna put Dogma on there because I'm a massive Kevin Smith fan. I think that's one of like the more brilliant movies, especially with the cast and things like that. Just the expositions that they really lay into the religious. It really explains a lot of the issues I have with religion as a whole. So for me, that's kind of like, hey, you know, what's your issue with religion? I kind of point to something like that.
what does he call the Jesus character in that? I totally forget. Is it like good guy Jesus?
Oh, it's
like,
Buddy Christ.
Buddy Christ. That's it.
Yes, I'll have my Buddy Christ sticker somewhere. I gotta find it, but yeah, I have a Buddy Christ sticker. Yeah,
of course you do. Did you ever see, by the way, to go off on a little Dogma tangent here? Did you see that while people were protesting this film, that
Kevin Smith was out there protesting it too.
Kevin Smith was the one interviewed by the news too. It was just like,
yes,
oh, that was great. I was like, that set it to like a new level for me as far as like the satire
dude,
goes.
it epitomizes the entire satire aspect because Kevin Smith himself is out there protesting it, and that just shows like the hypocrisy of everybody. And that, to me, that's like adds to the whole entire just aesthetic of the whole thing, man.
It's so perfect. It's because he's criticized. I mean, that's a satirization of society, and then here he is. He's just representing it too. I love it. Yeah, that's a good one. So right now, just to back up so far, what were the three we got so far?
It was Truman Show.
Truman Show. Okay.
Django, and then Dogma, and then I'm going to give. Before I get to my last one, I'm going to give this one here a notable like mention because I thought Borat, what it did for comedy and just the way that everybody to this day even still quotes Borat to the extreme. I thought that's a pretty good one as an honorable mention. It's not my favorite, but I think I'm going to put... Man, I'm gonna have to go with Office Space. It captures the corporate world of America and modern society. Even today, we're feeling those pains. You sit there and you're like, just what am I doing here? This is my life. I'm trapped inside this cubicle. Some people are. Maybe you have a really cool job, but yeah, it just really epitomizes again the corporate capitalistic world that we are stuck in forever.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Office Space. I you know what, I have been since like kind of since it came out. I always enjoyed that movie. It's not one of those that like the satire wasn't lost on me, even though it came out when I was young. I was like 11 or 12. It was never lost on me, and I always enjoyed it. So, yeah, I love all of those movies that you talked about, and like I said, I love kind of everyone on this list to a certain degree. Or for the ones that I've seen, there's a few on here that I have not seen yet, admittedly, but the most of them I have. So, yeah, if I'm going with mine, I think the first one I'm gonna put on here is Network. And Matt, I think maybe for an older one, this is one you might gravitate towards because the camera movements aren't as stale. The exposition and the satire is very much in your face. Like it is right. It is right there. So, and it's a commentary on, you know, television and media and everything like that. Just to give you a gist of it, of what it's about, this news anchor goes on air and announces, you know, basically is announcing like how he wants to commit suicide and how everything is awful about society. And the news gets big ratings from this, and they use this as a vehicle to get more get more audience members to watch, or boost their ratings, I should say. So yeah, that just to give you, that's sort of like the main plot of it. So
nice.
You can see where the satire is in that.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's hard to. it sucks because like obviously you're gonna leave some off here that you don't want to. I mean
it's hard because there's so many good movies that I thought have really moved the needle forward as far as film in general. It's really hard picking just like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go what stays true to me. Dawn of the Dead, 1978. I think I've got to put on there. It's satirizing, our commercialism and everything like that. So, in this the culture we have, obviously, that's why they get locked up in the mall. So, I'd say that's a good one. Also, to talk about that, not streaming anywhere. And I just looked up randomly. I'm like, hey, I'd like to buy this Blu-ray. So I looked it up on Amazon. This Blu-ray is fucking expensive, guys. Like,
dude, it's so expensive to buy.
So my brother has one. I just randomly was like, when I looked it up one day, and I was like, dude, like, you know how much your Blu-ray is worth for this right now? Because like, there's got to be some rights issues or something with it that are causing.
Well, it's like Dogma. You're not able to get Dogma because of the whole like Weinstein. Fucking locked it in a cage, essentially. Yeah, he locked it up, never to be seen, and everything like that.
Oh, that's stupid.
But
yeah, that's annoying too. But yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, so you can't find it stream anywhere. So like, I worry about a movie like that. And this again, this goes and speaks to the importance of physical media. Buy physical media. Do not buy it on a stream. If you have the chance to buy it in physical media, do it. Because
it's funny you mentioned that because we're going through our garage right now, kind of getting ready to pre-spring clean, and Carrie found an entire bin full of DVDs, and she's like, should we just get rid of these? And I was like, absolutely not. Best Buy, you can't buy physical copies at Best Buy anymore. They got rid of selling movies. Like Best Buy does not sell movies, physical DVDs anymore. And I'm like, streaming services, just look at the amount of times like HBO Max, for example, will pull something off, or Netflix gets rid of something, or then even that, but like Warner Brothers is known for deleting stuff for good. Like there's stuff I really enjoy, like Over the Garden Wall or other animated shows or movies that they'll get rid of and you can't find anywhere else because they own the rights, and then they don't distribute it physically anymore. So I'm a big proponent in buy the actual physical copy, because we're getting to this scary day and age where they can just make it disappear.
Yeah. And like, let's be clear, there are certain movies that should disappear, but there are also certain movies where it's like, okay, why is this disappearing? That's not, like something like Dawn of the Dead, where it's the rights and everything like that. It's now it's harder for audiences to engage with it, and we've got to watch the Zack Snyder one. And I'm sorry, not that big of a fan. I mean, it's decent, but it's
okay.
He's no George Romero. Let's just put it like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why George Romero created this entire zombie subgenre. I mean, nobody does it better than he ever did.
No, he's the GOAT as far as that goes. Okay, so I've got the 2 on there so far in Dawn of the Dead and Network. I think as far as the next one that goes, that I gravitate most towards is American Psycho.
Oh yeah,
another one that is a real like horror, satire, dark comedy. I
got reservations for the Dorsia.
Dorsia?
Yes.
Oh my god, I've got to return some videotapes.
I actually think that was a movie you and I used to watch at like your house a good portion. I know we watched that a few times together.
Oh, definitely, dude. That's that's a must for me.
Yeah,
and, this is one of those that's kind of interpreted. People are like, want to be like Patrick Bateman, and I'm like, you guys are kind of missing the point when you look at that. Like, you're not really getting it right now. Like, they're making fun of this.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. It's like those people who think of themselves like the Joker. It's like, oof, you're missing so many points right now.
Yeah. Or even like Fight Club, and it's just like, guys, like they're like they're making fun of it. That's on our satire.
They're making fun of you, actually.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're making fun of it. His name was Robert Paulson. Anytime I mention Fight Club, even though we shouldn't talk about it, I have to say that. So, all right, I think the last one I have on here, and this is a modern one, and I'm gonna zag and go foreign. Parasite. I fucking love. Parasite. Bong Joon-ho, who's made a career out of great satires. He's got this and Snowpiercer, which we may or may not be doing one of those films this year. So, really good satire about class and class structure, and obviously he's coming at it from Korean lens. But I fucking love that movie. So, yeah, that's it for me. I did leave Doctor Strangelove off the list, but it was kind of hard. I do love it. So yeah, that's what I've got for this. But we're gonna dive in here to one of our next questions. Is Kubrick the best director for satire? Because he's got quite the fucking list, and I think the majority of his films are actually satires. I mean, he doesn't have a long filmography. Obviously, he died in, I want to say he was 99 or 2000. So, taken from us a little too young. He definitely had more in the tank in him. But he made some of the greatest films ever. And obviously that includes, Doctor Strangelove. But we've got some good candidates as well. He's not the only one who does satire well. But let's look at his case for this. So his first satire we look at is Lolita. Then he follows that up with Doctor Strangelove, A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut. So nothing to sneeze at there. Well, that's a pretty fucking stacked list as far as satires go.
100%. I do think he's the best at it, just because that was his niche almost. You've seen some of these other directors, they dabble in it, then they kind of go away from it. They do maybe one or two. The only other one that I would really think deserves to be right up there is, the Coen brothers. I think they're really, really good when they're on their mark. The Big Lebowski, for example, in Burn After Reading's another really good one. John Malkovich and Brad Pitt. I think that's deserves all of the credit in the world. And then, I guess, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, you can talk. I don't really consider them they're not that movie-wise. Yeah.
South Park. Their main. That's their
it's the longest running TV show. Yeah, and that's of course is the number one satirical show ever created in the history of the universe. But I don't put them up on the filmography level, I guess.
Right, and their movies though. They are great satires as far as the South Park, bigger, longer,
Matt
uncut.
Damon.
Yeah, and then Team America: World Police. They're amazing satires. So. No, I hear you, man. The Coen brothers their use of humor, I think, is in line with that what we think about when we look at satire. But I will also say that you're leaving a couple out here, and I'll go through the entire list. But Paul Verhoeven, I think, is a fucking master of satire. RoboCop, obviously, probably his best one, and then. The big elephant in the room for him is Starship Troopers, which people took literally, even though he is literally taking shots from Triumph of the Will, a Nazi film. He's literally doing a shot-for-shot remake in certain scenes, and people missed it. They fucking missed it, and it's dude, it's a satire. The whole movie is supposed to be military propaganda movie, and people fucking missed it, and it was genius. He's just way ahead of its time. And I'm gonna throw this is a hot take on here, even though it's not a great film. I think Showgirls is sneaky one of those.
Oh yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah, because it's satirizing the show business aspect, or the entertainment aspect,
adult industry. Yeah.
Of Vegas and everything like that, and so yeah, I think people miss that a little bit as well. I just think the execution probably could have been better, but it's still there. So, but then we'll look at some of the other if you look at some of the best candidates for this, these are some of the best directors too. So Spike Lee does great when he does he does comedy. I mean, he has like some dark comedy to him, but when you look at even, Do the Right Thing, I think even though it's like a serious film, there's some dark comedic moments in that. But Chirac, that's probably one of his best satires. But Bamboozled, it's fucked up, but it's really it's a good movie. Bamboozled's awesome. Adam McKay, who's sort of come on lately with The Big Short, Vice, and Don't Look Up, definitely satirizing our society. Obviously, taking like a comedic look at, in The Big Short, the 2008 financial crisis, and Vice looking at the presidency or vice presidency, Freudian slip right there, of Dick Cheney. And Don't Look Up as sort of like, it's like an allegory for climate change, essentially. So, and then the other ones, I threw out some old school and foreign directors. I think when we look at sheer volume of who can compete with Kubrick, there's only one other guy, and that's Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah,
The Gold Rush, Great Dictator, Modern Times, Monsieur Verdot, those are all satires, and there's probably a few more that I missed with his. But then we've got some like foreign French film directors like Jean-Luc Godard, who does Contempt and Weekend, which are some of the great films of the French New Wave, and Federico Fellini, who does Orchestra Rehearsal and La Dolce Vita, which are widely renowned as great satires as well. But I think from sheer volume standpoint, it's not just volume but quality. It's really hard to compete with Kubrick. He was sort of just made for this style. And
honestly, I agree. It's just like, it's one of those things where like certain people are just made to do something, right? Like the Russo brothers are made, I think, for Marvel. I like their Marvel stuff more than anything they have done. But yeah, it's some people. I think Kubrick is just like the king of the mountain, so to speak.
Yeah, he is, and certainly that doesn't mean like he has the best of the films on here. And people might gravitate more towards some of the other films that we listed on here, but he's definitely he knows how to do satire. He knows how to do it at a high level, but also he really understands like, okay, what's gonna work in a visual medium and not just like through the comedy of speaking as well. So
yeah,
that's where I think he's great at. So
agreed.
And obviously film, a visual medium, so that's important.
Yeah.
Let's get into the production notes. Most of this research comes from a documentary on the Criterion Collection edition of this film that I got. So it was pretty cool. Like it's a 2000 documentary, and I was able to get a lot of the information from this. Let's set the stage though. America, 1963. This was a pretty turbulent time for us, to say the least, and for the world. The country had the Bay of Pigs fiasco, the start of the Vietnam conflict, the building of the Berlin Wall, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Basically, we're at peak Cold War right now. Like this. We're in the shit.
It's the whole Red Scare, all that kind of stuff's going on.
Oh yeah. Well, the Red Scare was like a few years back, but like this is still peak Cold War of shit that's going on. So. Like many Americans, the thought of nuclear annihilation was on Stanley Kubrick's mind, especially in wake of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So he read a novel by Peter George, retired Royal Air Force, I should say, so British navigator, called Red Alert, about a rogue U.S. military officer who attempts to trigger an unauthorized nuclear strike on the Soviet Union. Kubrick optioned the rights to this for $3,500 and began writing this screenplay as a dramatic thriller, which he titled Edge of Doom. So the Red Alert book was more in line with being like a straightforward, like this is what happens, drama thriller sort of thing. As Kubrick had completed the script, the United States discovered Russian nuclear missiles in Cuba. Public anxiety was so intense, so this is the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Kubrick realized that the only way to tell this story was a satirical comedy. He reimagined the story in comic form, he explained. So this is sort of like how his approach to satire came about. So he explained, confront a man in his office with a nuclear alarm, you have a documentary. If the news reaches him in his living room, you have a drama. If it catches him in the lavatory, the result is a comedy. And I'm like, it's a good, at its core, it's a good breakdown of like how to think about that.
For sure.
An early draft of this film had extraterrestrials observing the aftermath of this, and that was called The Delicate Balance of Terror. Kubrick eventually decided that it did need to be a little bit more grounded in reality. So Kubrick and George, the writer of Red Alert, had begun rewriting the script as a comedy, and they decided to reach out to Terry Southern. He's a Texas writer known for writing deadpan humor. Terry's book Candy had an absurd look on modern sexuality, which is important to this film. Kubrick soon spoke with Terry and let him know that his novel, The Magic Christian, contained certain indications of the approach he was aiming for. So that was sort of his pitch to Terry there. Kubrick also told Terry to come up with the most outrageous thing a character can say and still be credible. So as you can imagine, this led to Terry writing some of the most iconic lines in the film. Terry also came up with the title Dr. Strangelove, while Kubrick came up with that subtitle, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. So I thought that was pretty cool that they kind of collaborated on that. The War Room, which is sort of where there's only really a couple places or sets, I guess, that this film takes place in. The War Room being sort of the most iconic one. The War Room is totally fictional, though. It's not based on anything from the military. Famously, Reagan, when he was elected, wanted to see the War Room, and they were like, there is no War Room. That was a movie.
What War Room?
Yeah, I know. What War Room? But Kubrick wanted to make it feel as like realistic as possible. So they built it at Shepperton Studios in England. Originally, Kubrick wanted to film this in New York, but he figured that Shepperton was going to be more accommodating to what they wanted to do for this. Production designer Ken Adam, was the one who designed the War Room. He drew inspiration from a few films of the silent era, most notably the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Metropolis. So sort of those films that were drawing from the German Expressionism, which is pretty cool. One of the other main props in the War Room, though, is the giant table. So you have the big board in back, which has, the map and everything like that. But then you also have this huge table, which is about a 22 feet diameter table. This was a big set. Kubrick wanted the table to be covered in green paper. Even though it's a black and white film and like it's kind of hard to notice that it's green, it does kind of, if you pay attention, it kind of feels like it is for some reason. I just don't know why.
Like sometimes you can still even though there's things like void of colors, you can still kind of get the sense of what color they're meant to be.
Yeah.
Like uniform items, things like that. You can still get that sense of like, hey, no, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think so. So he wanted the table to be covered in green paper. And the reason why he chose this, he wanted to give his actors and the audience the impression that this is a giant poker table and these men are playing a game of poker to decide the fate of the world.
Well, what's funny is something like a massive table, and you're talking about Russia, and Putin currently is known for his oversized tables, so it's one of those things that's also aged. But I guess we could talk about that when we get to those points, but
that's
big
aged pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Big table, big dick. I'm sure that has something to do with it too. Or the impression of that. We'll talk dicks later. Don't worry.
Yeah,
lots of dick talk on this episode. The floor of the War Room was made of black formica. So the actors typically had to wear like slippers not to scratch the floor. Obviously, when you start seeing their shoes at the end, you can kind of get a sense of, where this was filmed in order. The big map with all like the nuclear bombers and the targets, they used 10 miles of electrical cable to light that. So, yeah, pretty big fucking set. And then the other major set that they had was the interior of the B-52. The military wasn't going to help them in designing this, obviously.
No, at all. At that time, it was very sensitive. It still is, actually.
Yeah, of course it is. So they had really one of the starting points that they had was a book called Strategic Air Command. And on the cover of the book, you could see a little bit of the interior of the B-52 because you basically see a pilot and you can see what's in front of him and like the window that's in front of him as well. So they had to use that to piece together what the rest of it would look like. So Peter Merton did the design of the B-52, and he was able to get pretty accurate design of the interior with not much help. And apparently, some of the publicists for this film invited military personnel to see what they had shot, and they were shocked on how accurate it was, to the point it became like a concern for Kubrick that the military, or they were like, hey, whatever
dial
you guys
it back
did,
a little bit.
Whatever you guys did with this design, make sure it was all done legally, or the FBI could be coming after us or something like that.
Right.
So interesting. Like they literally, you hear them talk about, they're like, yeah, they literally turned white when they saw the inside of this. And
that's
like,
crazy.
I know, right? It's insane. So a lot of it, Merton did a lot of like the switches and stuff like that, and I think that's where like they were like shocked at how accurate it was. So even though the switches kind of like are used for humor in the film, if you haven't noticed. So models and rear projections. So this is obviously pre-CGI, and I don't have to say that. It's 1964.
Right.
They use models and rear projection for the shots of the B-52 flying. So they sent a second unit film crew to do the aerial shots in the Arctic Circle to get that footage. They shot over 28,000 miles over the course of 3 weeks. During this time, they accidentally filmed an American base, and they were intercepted by fighters and forced to land because they thought they were spies. So yeah, interesting.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, like, this is peak Cold War and what's going on. So
yeah.
After all this was, since all like this other stuff was progressing, though, Kubrick turns his attention to the casting, and Peter Sellers had been on the top of his mind. Basically, they had worked together pretty recently on Lolita, and Sellers really jumped at the opportunity to work with Kubrick again, and I'm sure the fact that he got to play 3 roles helped as well. How many people get to play 3 roles in a comedy film? So much of the part that Sellers played with his various characters, though, was not scripted. He and Kubrick kind of collaborated on that, so I thought that was pretty cool too. I think we talked about this on the Ace Ventura podcast, but Sellers in '64 had one of the great years of all time. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Three characters in this movie: Pink Panther, and I think both Pink Panther films came out around this time. So, looking here, Sellers had an easy time portraying the RAF officer, Captain Lionel Mandrake, because during his time in service, he would impersonate officers all the time, and he just enjoyed doing it despite the potential consequences. I think during that time for impersonating officers, you could get like 10 years in prison. So, yeah. So he enjoyed doing it a lot. He had a more difficult time playing President Merkin Muffley, as originally he portrayed the character to be too weak and bumbling, but Kubrick kind of reined him in because he knew that this was the one character who had to know how serious the prospect of nuclear war was. So he was able to kind of rein that in. And then for Dr. Strangelove, Sellers got the idea of using the infamous glove that he's wearing from Kubrick himself, because Kubrick would wear a glove all the time as he was handling a lot of lights and during the shoots. So basically, when he was touching the lights, he put this glove on so he could protect his hands from getting burned. So that's a nice touch. I love that in film where it's like this. It's always this collaborative effort.
Right.
If you're paying attention, you're getting ideas from everywhere.
It's like the little details too that make big moves.
Yeah, I mean, like exactly. Like we just talked about the touch of putting, having the big table look like a poker
Yeah.
table essentially too. So Sellers was originally going to play 4 parts in the film. Can you care to guess what the other part was that he was going to play, Matt?
Why do I feel like 4 parts? So he hit those 3. Was it like James Earl Jones's part?
Good guess. Good guess. It was in the bomber, but no, it was Slim Pickens' part of Major King Kong. So, yeah. So he was gonna play them. He had he did end up getting the Texas accent down, despite his difficulties. But he was injured, and then they basically reached out to Slim Pickens because they're like, look, we need a guy who's already like this. We don't need like a trained actor to come in here and teach him how to do this Texas accent again. So that's where Slim Pickens came in.
Oh my god.
to play that. So yeah, that's where they got Slim Pickens in here. George C. Scott was really considered to play General Buck Turgidson from the beginning as well. He was sort of an established, but also up and comer. Kubrick saw him in the lead, or as the lead in a Shakespeare play. I know Shakespeare
Hamlet.
has a lot of plays, but that's your guess, Hamlet?
Yeah, I don't know why. Othello.
No, think more on the comedies, not the tragedies.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know Shakespeare comedies, man. I only know like 3 of them.
Come on, dude. That's all right. It's The Merchant of Venice, and that's where he also found James Earl Jones, who was also in the play as well. So,
that's cool.
This is early James Earl Jones.
Yeah, he was young, man. He was suave looking.
I know he was. He was good looking. He still is.
He is.
So I found this to be interesting for George C. Scott, though. Scott was known to be tough since like he was a Marine and a drinker, and could potentially be difficult to work with. So Kubrick knew he needed to earn his respect. So Scott fancied himself to be a good chess player. So Kubrick brought a chessboard to set every day, and Scott would spend all of his time trying to win, and Kubrick would come in and just destroy him in a few quick moves because Kubrick is a fucking chess master. So that was essentially how he would just he would earn his respect is that he could never beat him. And so yeah, and especially it's like he fancied himself a good chess player too. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And Kubrick's he's like an obsessive chess player. So I always kind of like that touch about him.
Interesting.
Yeah, the character of General Buck Turgidson was loosely based off General Curtis LeMay, who had like fanatical anti-communist views. So I didn't dig too much about Curtis LeMay, but take that at face value. For General Jack D. Ripper, Matt, by the way, were you just not getting the comedy in these names too, or
dude,
what?
Obviously Jack D. Ripper. Come on, man. We all know what that one is.
But also we had Colonel Bat Guano too. Like
that was the other one, like Colonel Batshit.
Colonel King Kong, or I mean Major King Kong too.
Yeah, like of course, like the names are hilarious.
Yeah, the names are fucking great. But Kubrick convinced Sterling Hayden to come out of retirement to make this film for him, and Sterling Hayden had worked with him before on The Killing, one of Kubrick's films before this. So glad he convinced him to come out of this, because not only would Sterling Hayden come out to do this film, which is a classic, but he would come out almost 10 years later to do, well, Matt, I will let you guess. It's one of the greatest films of all time.
One of the greatest films of all time.
1972.
Jaws?
Nope. He's not in that.
I don't know.
He's
Star
in The
Wars.
Godfather.
It's obviously The Godfather. That's why I said.
We only had one female character on this film. That's Tracy Reed. So she played basically Buck Turgidson's secretary / love interest or mistress, whatever it is. And she was the Playboy centerfold too. When he's looking at the Playboy and when they show the B-52 the first time, that's her in there. So.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I never really realized. I guess there is only one.
Yeah. One female to 20 males. That's the closest I'm gonna get to a Dr. Strangelove impression right there. I mean, okay. There was actually another film that with a similar plot and themes that was due to come out around the same time as Dr. Strangelove, and Kubrick was concerned because this is it was treating the film a little bit, or the subject matter, more seriously. So he wanted this to be first, essentially. So
Right.
because he felt like, oh, if this comes out and they treat it more seriously, and then I come out and do this, like, people aren't going to get it. So basically, and they had a great cast and crew. Sidney Lumet was the director of this, and it's called Failsafe, and they had Henry Fonda and Walter Matthau. So Kubrick and Columbia actually sued the source novel of this film, Failsafe, because this film was plagiarized from the source novel was basically plagiarized Red Alert. Yeah, they did end up suing, and that gave Kubrick the time to release Dr. Strangelove before Failsafe. So principal photography ended in late spring of 1963, and Kubrick went on to do the opening credit sequence, and this is where we're going to get into dick talks right here. Because as Quentin Tarantino so eloquently put it when we talk about the opening credit sequence, it's just dicks. That's literally all it is. So you notice, obviously, what they do is, like, they have this phallic imagery of just, the planes, the refueling. It's just sex all over the place. And so there's this undercurrent throughout the whole film of sex, and it just sets the stage. And I'm like, this is fucking genius. Like, that's the shit that I appreciate. Did you at least get it when you saw it, Matt? Like, that's what they were going for?
I didn't. I'll be honest. I did not.
They obviously used the song. I think the song is "Try a Little Tenderness" or something like that. So you're supposed to be like, oh, this is
me. I was just like, it's another in-flight refueling. Cool.
You're too close to it to realize, like, oh,
I think that's why.
Even though it looks like just, I'm like, oh, that's a P going in a V right there. That's definitely it.
It's yeah.
Yeah. So I loved it. That's sort of like, if I'm gonna get into what aged the best, I think the opening credit sequence is fucking amazing. So this was due to come out in fall of 1963, but something major happened at this time to get it pushed back. Matt, you're a history. We're going to pretend to be history buffs, not real buffs. What happened in 1963 that caused this movie to get pushed back?
Didn't the government kill Kennedy?
Bingo. Yeah. So Kennedy assassination happened, and they were like, this is going to be released 3 weeks afterwards, and was like, yeah, like, let's not release that. That's probably not good timing on our part. So yeah, they pushed it back, and understandably so. And I think that was the right decision. Ultimately, it wouldn't have worked for audiences. But yeah, so that changed. They also changed one of the lines too. So Slim Pickens, remember when they're opening the like kits that they get, he's like, they got, nylons and Provolact. He's like, hell, this could be a pretty good weekend in Vegas. That's not what he originally said. He originally said a pretty good weekend in Dallas. And so that's why they changed it.
Oh,
interesting, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Makes sense. So it did release eventually in January of 1964. Made $9 million in the worldwide box office, but like 90% of that was domestic anyway. So if we are looking, Matt, at our inflation calculator, so $1964, $9 million. Care to guess what that is as far as today's dollars go?
63 million.
Yeah, it's actually more than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, 102.
Yeah, you're closer. It ends up being 91 million. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
not too bad.
Yeah, pretty good. If we were to look at where it came about in 1964 in the rankings for those, it was 12th in the box office. Number one was a Disney musical at the time. Care to guess what it was?
Was it Snow White?
No, musical, so not live action, not animated.
Oh, a live action Disney musical. I don't know. What the hell came out back then? Couldn't tell you.
Mary Poppins.
Oh, that's Carrie's like favorite one too. I always forget that movie even exists.
Wow, your wife's favorite movie, you forget it exists, man.
I know Mary Poppins. I'm just saying I forget always that it came out that long ago because I don't know why. I never think about Mary Poppins. I don't know.
That's fair.
Mary Poppins is never on my mind.
That's fair. She's not in my mind anytime soon either. This was pretty cool. The one movie I'm gonna lead you to this one. There was one movie ahead of it that at the 11th spot that made just like almost like $300,000 more. But
63?
Yeah, in 64.
I don't know what movies came out then.
No, I'm gonna lead you to this one. So think of the Super Bowl and think of Travis Kelce and what he said when he got that Super Bowl trophy.
Viva Las Vegas.
Yep, exactly, dude.
Huh.
Okay. So Viva Las Vegas was the one right ahead of it. So I thought that was topical since we just watched the Super Bowl.
Watched our awful Super Bowl predictions, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if we were to take this movie and put it in today's domestic box office, it would sit comfortably at the number 29 spot, right ahead of the Nuns or the Nun 2, and right below Equalizer 3. So, which the Nun 2 made $86 million in box office, Equalizer 3 about 92. So,
okay.
Yeah, pretty standard as far as that goes. It's a pretty popular movie. Did well in the box office. For critical reception, Metacritic gives it a 97, which is the highest we've seen so far in the movies we've done. So yes, Matt, you are alone on an island of your take on this movie.
Apparently so.
98% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
I don't know how, but how? You know what? Everybody loves what they love. I love terrible movies all the time. So
fair enough. Looking at one of the positive reviews here, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times, basically, this is what he said. He said, Stanley Kubrick's new film, so this was done in 1964, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, is beyond any question the most shattering sick joke I've ever come across. For this brazenly jesting speculation of what might happen within the Pentagon and within the most responsible counsel of the President of the United States, if some maniac Air Force general were to suddenly order a nuclear strike on the Soviet Union, is at the same time one of the cleverest and most incisive satirical thrust at the awkwardness and folly of the military that has ever been on screen. I honestly, I can't disagree with that review because it probably is at the time.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
I don't know. I want to say, I don't know if this is post-Hays Code or anything like that. It might be. So maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah.
When they certainly started to lax on some of that stuff. But I forget, I know that his next film, Clockwork Orange, is definitely post-Hays Code. But we did, despite how positive this movie was received, I was able to find a negative review by
Matt Roth.
No, yeah, by Matt Roth of Hopskeep News. No, the negative review is by Philip K. Correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Philip K. Schuer of the LA Times. He acknowledges too. He goes, "This will be a minority report, critically speaking, at any rate. Before I was served up Dr. Strangelove of How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, a publicist at Columbia was distributing the picture, assured me it would be my cup of tea. After suffering through 2 screenings of Dr. Strangelove, I would sooner drink hemlock. To me, Dr. Strangelove is an evil thing about an evil thing. You will have to make up your own mind about it." So,
and I did.
Matt, you did. I'm. You know what? Good on you for not being a sheep. All right, like the rest of us.
Yeah, look at that. You guys all love this. You know what? Maybe I'm the one that's right. Who knows? You get on board eventually.
Yeah, I doubt that, but whatever.
We can't all think the same things, otherwise everything would be boring. So there you go. That's my excuse for everything.
That's totally fair. So, it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Peter Sellers for Best Actor, Stanley Kubrick for Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Picture. It lost all. In 1989, the United States Library of Congress included Dr. Strangelove as one of the first 25 films selected for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So, suck on that, Matt.
All right. Well. All right.
All right. Let's get into the categories and awards. Best scene. I've got a few here, and I know Matt probably doesn't have any. So
I have like one decent scene that I was just like, all right, I can get behind this.
The opening credits. We talked about
the ending credits, actually. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the ending credits. The ending credits are pretty good too. I mean, I don't know, the bombs going off and everything. We don't have many musical moments, but that's another good one. So. Opening credits I fucking love because, we're talking about the phallic imagery. It's just dicks, as Tarantino said. I do. I love it. I think it's genius and sets the stage for what's to be expected in this. The next one I have is the B-52 getting the Plan R. It leaves some good comedic moments.
Major Kong, I know you think this is crazy, but I just got a message from base over the CRM 114. And he called his wing attack Plan R. Alpha Romeo.
Goldie, did you say wing attack Plan R?
Yes, sir, I have.
Goldie, how many times have I told you guys that I don't want no horsing around on the airplane?
I'm not horsing around, sir. That's how it goes.
Well, I've been to one World Fair, a picnic, and a rodeo, and that's the stupidest thing I ever heard come over a set of earphones.
I fucking love it. So, Mandrake, when he confronts Ripper.
Oh, yeah.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Next I have is the War Room intro.
We're still trying to figure out the meaning of that last phrase, sir.
There's nothing to figure out, General Turgidson. This man is obviously a psychotic.
Well, I'd like to hold off judgment on a thing like that, sir, until all the facts are in.
General Turgidson, when you instituted the human reliability tests, you assured me there was no possibility of such a thing ever occurring.
Well, I don't think it's quite fair to condemn a whole program because of a single slip-up, sir.
I think George C. Scott, how he is he's overacting the shit out of that, but I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect for what what they're trying to accomplish with the character. Next one I have is Russian ambassador when he visits. That's where we get the one of the great lines. Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is a war room. So, so I love that one. I like when President Muffley gets on the phone with Dmitri and tells him what's going on. To me, it's like that's one of the best exchanges. Well, we had a mix-up. It's like, what the fuck? It's the way he's breaking it to him. And then Mandrake and Guano at the Coke machine is fucking hysterical.
Oh, yeah. Where he's like, can you, I need some change. I'm 20 cents short. And he's just a colonel. Can you use your gun to shoot open that Coke machine to get change or whatever? And then he gets sprayed in the face. Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Well, then it's just his line too. And I'm going to keep saying the lines because these are usually the lines kind of coincide with some of these scenes. Then the fourth plane not shot down. So that's when Muffley's back on with Dmitri and telling him about that. And then the last good scene I have is Dr. Strangelove's plan at the end where he's just going full Nazi on us too.
Yes.
Mein Führer, I can walk.
I'll say like the best scene that that's one scene that I thought was pretty decent was when he's on top of the bomb and it drops out and he's riding the bomb down to the ground. Like, okay, that was comical.
Also, speaking of dicks, what do you think? Why do you think it's shot with the bomb between his legs like that?
Oh yeah, it's his big dick. He's got the cowboy hat on and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, come on. Exactly.
All right, most quotable lines. Some of these, are more exchanges than lines, and some of them are a little bit long lines. So, we'll play the clip for a lot of these. But I always like Mandrake's one where like he's finding out about this is the shortest one on here, but when he's finding out from Ripper that like this is not a drill and it's the Russians and we're in a shooting war, and he's just like, oh hell.
It looks like we're in a shooting war.
Hell.
That just cracked me up.
Yeah.
I mentioned the one before with Major Kong in the World Fair and Picnic line, so that one's hilarious. President Merkin Muffley, though, I will not go down in history as the greatest mass murderer since Adolf Hitler.
I will not go down in history as the greatest mass murderer since Adolf Hitler.
Perhaps it might be better, Mr. President, if you were more concerned with the American people than with your image in the history books.
General Turgidson, I think I've heard quite sufficient from you. Thank you very much.
I fucking love that line. This is probably the best line in the film.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
And then I like this one. This is Randolph and Ambassador de Sadesky. He's like, try one of these Jamaican cigars, Ambassador. They're pretty good. Thank you. No, I do not support the work of imperial stooges. Oh, only commie stooges, huh?
Try one of these Jamaican cigars, Ambassador. They're pretty good.
Thank you, no. I do not support the work of imperialist stooges.
Oh, only commie stooges, huh?
That was a good one.
The president telling Dmitri, the Soviet leader Dmitri, about the threat of them being bombed.
Hello, Dmitri. Listen, I can't hear too well. Do you suppose you could turn the music down just a little? Oh, that's much better. Yeah. Yes. Fine, I can hear you now, Dmitri. Clear and plain and coming through fine. I'm coming through fine too, eh? Good. Then, as you say, we're both coming through fine. Good. Well, it's good that you're fine then, and I'm fine. I agree with you. It's great to be fine. Now then, Dmitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb. The bomb, Dmitri. The hydrogen bomb. Well, now, what happened is one of our base commanders, he had a sort of, he went a little funny in the head. Just a little funny. And he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country. Let me finish, Dmitri. Let me finish, Dmitri. Well, listen, how do you think I feel about it? Can you imagine how I feel about it, Dmitri? Why do you think I'm calling you? Just to say hello? Of course I like to speak to you. Of course I like to say hello. Not now, but any time, Dmitri. I'm just calling up to tell you something terrible has happened. It's a friendly call. Of course it's a friendly call. Listen, if it wasn't friendly, you probably wouldn't have
also, a lot of it was improvised, surprisingly enough, by Peter Sellers. Like, he just had something to go off of and would improvise a little thing, which is that's just speaks.
That's a testament to how good he is.
Oh, he's a fucking talent, man. I love Peter Sellers.
I can get behind that.
General Buck Turgidson, I love this. Gee, I wish we had one of those doomsday machines.
Gee, I wish we had one of them doomsday machines, Stainsy.
I love this one too. President Muffley, you're talking about mass murder, General, not war. And then General Turgidson, Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed tops, depending on the breaks.
You're talking about mass murder, General, not war.
Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed tops, depending on the breaks.
10 to 20 million.
Just a little bit of people, 10 to 20 million. No big deal.
Yeah. And And then my last couple here is the exchange at the Coca-Cola machine between Guano and Mandrake is hilarious. That might be my favorite in the whole movie.
That Coca-Cola machine. I want you to shoot the lock off it. There may be some change in there.
That's private property.
Colonel, can you possibly imagine what is going to happen to you, your frame, outlook, way of life, and everything, when they learn that you have obstructed a telephone call to the President of the United States? Can you imagine? Shoot it off! Shoot with a gun! That's what the bullets are for, you twit!
Okay. I'm gonna get your money for you. But if you don't get the President of the United States on that phone, you know what's gonna happen to you?
What?
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
And the survival kit contents when they're talking about the weekend in Vegas.
In them you'll find 145 caliber automatic, 2 boxes of ammunition, 4 days concentrated emergency ration, 1 drug issue containing antibiotics, morphine, vitamin pills, pep pills, sleeping pills, tranquilizer pills, 1 miniature combination Russian phrase book and Bible, $100 in rubles, $100 in gold, 9 packs of chewing gum, 1 issue of prophylactics, 3 lipsticks, 3 pair of nylon stockings. Shoot, a fella could have a pretty good weekend in Vegas with all that stuff.
So yeah, that's it. Which one of these is your favorite, Matt?
I do like the Coke machine exchange. That one is good just because I found that clever when he's on collect. I need this, and he's like, "Oh, I've only got 30 cents or something."
Yeah, they're not going to accept the collect call.
He's like, "Do you have any change?" And he's like, basically, "No, I don't have change. Why would I carry change?" And then he's like, well, I need to get to the president." And that whole exchange was clever.
It's like, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of the Coca-Cola company. It's like,
yeah.
I love it. It's like not realizing the gravity of the situation. That's the best. Is like a lot of these characters don't. The only one who does is like the president and maybe the guy from the Soviet leader too.
Yeah.
All right. What is best? Conflict with the Russians aged pretty well.
It would easily be the conflict with the Russians because it never ended. We're still in this endless dancing around of nukes. We're all afraid of nukes, and that's the only reason why we haven't wiped Russia off the face of the earth yet is because they have nukes, and now they're wanting to put nukes in space because they're just psychos.
We cannot allow a mind shift gap. The famous words from Turgidson at the end, where they're all talking about like the gap, and that's why they created the Doomsday device. So it's just this whole fucking thing of arms race to the point where we're really capable of just ending it all, unfortunately. So Peter Sellers' performance, though, I would say
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, three. He was gonna do 4, which is amazing.
Yeah, he was multiple. It's not easy, playing multiple different characters. So
yeah, multiple different characters, also multiple different accents, and the way he's playing them. So I love it.
I'll also say like the bickering amongst like officials, that's something that's aged pretty well because we still get that, especially in today's day and age.
Oh, totally. That's a good one, actually. Yeah, bickering amongst the officials and also
the powers that be, if you will.
Yeah, and also like a dick measuring contest within the military itself. Because remember, like
always
the airborne is gonna go invade the Air Force base, and Buck Turgidson gets his backup because he's the Air Force guy, and
yeah,
it just becomes a dick measuring contest between the two of them. So I think that's a good one. And then obviously I'm gonna go with the opening credits. Stick on the themes of dicks here.
Yeah.
All right, what is the worst? Matt, I think you're going to agree with this one the most. Pacing.
The pacing, yeah. It took me out of the movie. I just could never actually get into the movie just because it was so oddly paced, and like you'd get moments where things start to ramp up and then it slows down with exposition dumps, which I don't have a problem with exposition dumps, but it's just so jarring a lot of the ways, and so I just couldn't get into this movie, man.
Fair. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, look, I get it. The pacing, it doesn't age well. That's why it's number 1 on here. This one though, I had to put fluoride conspiracy theories because that's the whole reason why
God.
Jack T. Ripper is going is going mental here. He's talking about the commie conspiracy for fluoride in water. Oh my God, dude! I don't know if that aged the best or worse. I said it aged the worst because I fucking hate the fluoride conspiracy theories.
I think it's stupid, but I still hear it to this day.
Yeah, so it's still around. Like it's still something people do say. What would Jack T. Ripper would the internet have made Jack T. Ripper worse or would it made it better?
Probably like both. It's one of those like it's better but worse kind of things.
Where was Jack T. Ripper on January 6th? That's what I want to know.
Oh, you know where he was at. He was taking pictures in Pelosi's office.
No, he was the one making sure that we didn't get any reinforcements. That's what he was
that's
doing.
fair. Yeah, actually, you're right.
He was the one controlling it from the inside.
Yeah.
That's where my mind goes with Jack T. Ripper. He would just be on like Reddit threads though too, like seeing all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Or would he just have been so disillusioned? Like he's just like, you know what? Like they
he's blocking the National Guard.
Yeah, he's blocking the National Guard. Oh my God. I love it. All right. If you had a Rick and Morty interdimensional cable box, what version of this movie would you like to see? I'm going a little bit off script here, mainly because with interdimensional cable boxes, we can create any universe possible. So what I say to this is that I would love to see a modern day remake of this movie. And you know who I'd love to see directing it? I think one of the best directors for satire in modern day. And that's Jordan Peele.
I can get behind that one. I was going to say the area where it just never gets made, but I would be down for a remake to see if maybe my opinions change on it.
Well, just because I think the subject matter, it's still very relevant. So,
yeah.
I mean, do you think I planned on releasing this podcast at the time where we're hearing all this shit about Russia again? No. I wish I had that kind of foresight. I'd be a fucking billionaire by now.
No kidding.
But I don't. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that it's still very much like at the forefront of I mean,
here we are,
so,
right? Like 60 years later, we're still in the same song and dance with the same countries.
Yeah, exactly. Not much has changed. Really, the only change has been they're not the Soviet Union anymore. They are Russia, and that's it. So
right.
Yeah. So that's why it's like I think it would work as a remake, and I had Jordan Peele directing, but I can't really think of anybody else as far as who would be in it. So maybe we could collaborate on that. Who if we were casting this, Matt, who are we getting in there? Who are we casting for Jack D. Ripper is the number one question.
Oh, I bet you John Hamm would play the fuck out of that role.
You think so?
Dude, without a doubt. John Hamm, he's got that sarcastic humor. He does it really well. If you've actually watched a lot of his stuff, he can play it serious. He can play it very sarcastic, very humorous. He's also got that just generalistic kind of look to him. I would cast him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because whoever plays him has to be able to be like serious, but not too serious. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's a good one. I like John Hamm in that role. I don't know. My only issue with him is that I don't like. There's the brilliance of Sterling Hayden is you can see the comedy behind his character a little bit. Does that make any sense? Like there's like you can see that he's a little over the top. I just don't know like what that's gonna look like from John Hamm, I guess. So that's my only thing about that.
Yeah.
Because that would be, that's obviously like the most like important role for that is like you gotta have somebody that's like playing it straight, but also
like self-aware almost. Like they know what movie they're in.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, almost. So I would that's a good one.
And Matthew McConaughey is playing the dude who has the cowboy hat on.
He's playing King Kong.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that. That would be good. That would actually be pretty good. You know who I think would be good as the president is let's reunite them since we're talking Jordan Peele. Keegan-Michael Key as the president.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah, he's just like, because he could be serious, but like there's a little bit of comedy in there too.
And then obviously playing Dr. Strangelove is oh my God, why did I just blank on his name? He's in Django as he's opposite the. Why am I forgetting his name?
Oh, you're talking about Christoph Waltz.
Yes. He's obviously Dr. Strangelove.
Are you just typing him because he's German? I mean, come on. No, actually,
but also he's got that humor about him in his movies. If you've watched in Glorious Bastards, he does that opening. In Django, like he plays that really well. That role is like him.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I think he'd be good at though too? I feel like he'd be good as Mandrake as well.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah, because like there's also. He has this command of authority, but also like he can portray like weakness pretty well too. He's not just a like, oh, I'm so commanding in my strength. I mean, I think that's what he's good at, but like he can portray that as well. So, but I also feel like a British actor should be Mandrake if they do anything like that.
Henry Cavill.
I actually was going to say Hugh Grant. I think he'd be good.
That works too.
All right, cool. Standout performance. I mean,
Peter Sellers, man.
Yeah,
that's the one answer because he plays like 8 different guys and he does so well.
He's fucking amazing. I love George C. Scott and Sterling Hayden though. I think they're fucking amazing.
Honorable mentions.
Yeah, so definitely honorable mentions. Pound for pound, really hard to get a pound for pound out of this because we spend a lot of time with these characters. But I'd say the one we're gonna put on there is Keenan Wynn as Colonel Bat Guano.
Yeah, that's fair. James Earl Jones I always will vote for, even though he just
he's
goes
good.
kind of generic in this.
He's good in that. Like there's not much he's got going on. That's all.
No, yeah, that's the problem is he doesn't do anything. So obviously it's Keenan Wynn.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Music moment. We've only got 3 songs in this whole fucking movie. So
my God, they play When the Ants Go Marching Home like on repeat. It's God. Bless
well,
America.
It's called When Johnny Comes Marching Home, technically, but
well, still, it's played every 30 seconds in this movie.
Yeah, it's sort of like the motif that's going on with the guys in the plane. I mean, and that makes sense because like those guys, even though they are carrying out something that's horrific, like they really are just like, they're kind of like being portrayed as the heroes of the film, and because like that's what they're meant to do, and like it's everybody else that's kind of fucking up, They're just doing what they're told, sort of thing,
Yeah.
So yeah, we have that. We have Try a Little Tenderness at the beginning, to really set in how it's all dicks at the beginning and sex. So, and then we got We'll Meet Again at the end. So, which is, I'd say for me, it's the Try a Little Tenderness at the beginning.
Yeah. I'm going to go with that just because that's the only that song didn't bother me at all. And then I couldn't tell you what else songs because that when Johnny Comes Marching Home, just, oh God. Yeah, God, it's so annoying.
All right. Double feature. I've got 3. I think the first one to do, and I think this would be an interesting juxtaposition, is Oppenheimer.
Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's the whole nuclear race.
Yeah, and that's like the real beginning of it. So we're talking about World War II, and but also there's in Oppenheimer there's some post-war look at the film as well. Like obviously the big lead up to it is the detonation, but this obviously treats it a lot more seriously than Doctor Strangelove.
Oh yeah, but still, there's still like some. It's satirical. It's not satirical.
It's not
Oppenheimer, but like it also both things are kind of like hammer home important realistic points in their own ways.
Yeah. And I think why I like Oppenheimer is because it just is an interesting juxtaposition to have the serious treatment of this and then also like the satirical, farcical treatment of it, because it's so fucking how out of hand the nuclear arms race got. So
yeah.
I think that would be a good one. The other one I have on here is the other Stanley Kubrick war film,
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. Let's go. I love that. Love that movie. I was starting to watch it the other day, and a lot of people will say that they like the first half of that film and they don't like the second half.
A lot of people forget the second half is all about going to war. Like everybody just thinks like the movie is them in basic training, and I cannot tell you how many times I feel like people have said like, "Oh, there's more to that movie."
It's a lot more to that movie, and that's where a lot of the satire comes in, is actually the second half of the film. So
yeah.
And then the last one I had was Failsafe, because I figured, I'm like, oh, this is like the more serious treatment that came out at the time. So let's see what that looks like back to back together. So it's basically the same movie. So I don't know. Did you have any others as far as like what you do a double feature with? Because, well, let's be real. You're not doing a double feature with
I'm not doing a double feature. I'm doing a single feature.
You're like, I'm just going to watch Oppenheimer and call it a day.
Pretty much.
All right. Who wins the day?
Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I'm not even gonna make the case for Kubrick. I mean,
no, because I think this is a good Kubrick movie, but I don't think it's his best movie.
No, I don't think so either. I don't. I think there are better. Most of his better stuff came after this. 2001, Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, Shining. So yeah, I don't think it's his best. I love it, but it's Peter Sellers. I mean, you get to play 3 roles in a film and knock them all out of the park. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. That's what this category was created for, is for you to win.
Agreed.
All right, let's get to it. The dreaded, well, I'm saying dreaded this time because I don't want to know what your score is on this. So Matt, you're not giving. No, I'm just kidding.
It's 2 out of 5. There you go. It's 2 out of 5. There are some elements in there that are good, and I can look at it subjectively, but just because I didn't like it, so I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay, 2 out of 5. All right, I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah. It's when you think of, even though despite the film's pacing issues, when you think of a satire, this should be one of the first ones that pops in your head. It is visually executed perfectly. I mean, Matt, how many times do you see "Peace is our profession" throughout the whole fucking thing? It's hilarious. Stanley Kubrick's a master at sort of like making every frame a painting almost, but also doing it where it's like he can communicate everything that he's trying to get across in the film visually. And I think he does that with the war room and the poker table setup, and the idea of, or the imagery at the beginning with dicks being all over the place, as Tarantino would say. It's just, there's something about it. And I love how he's like incorporating how sex and not just sex, but I guess like masculinity and sex is sort of intertwined with this whole arms race and nuclear holocaust potentially. So I love how he's sort of intertwining that. So and I think for me, I'm just knocking off half a point because of its age, and I think that's fair. To me, other than that, like if I was coming in here and we were doing this podcast in 1964, I'd probably give it 5 stars. I'd be like, this is fucking perfect.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, if I watched this the day it came out, for sure, probably.
Yeah, because we wouldn't be as we would be watching it with different lenses essentially. So.
Right.
All right, cool. Yeah. So for that score, let's go ahead and do some math. 4.5 plus 2 equals 6.5. Wow, I had to enter that in my calculator. I really am an idiot.
I would have done the same. My inability to do basic math.
Yeah, this is 3.25 stars on the Letterboxd score. So, yeah. If you guys are following the Real Buffs and you're a film lover, I apologize that Mean Girls probably has a better score than this. And don't get me wrong, love Mean Girls. I still think this is a way better film than Mean Girls. It's just different. So that's the star score. So next time I do an old movie, I'm gonna have to gang up on you and get somebody else in here so that we can,
hey, that's fine. I respect it.
All right, cool. Housekeeping. So we got to address the elephant in the room in our awful Super Bowl predictions. First off, I'm going to take mine and tell you about how awful it was choosing the Rams. And
didn't I pick the Chiefs? For some reason, I feel like I picked the Chiefs.
You picked the Ravens and Niners.
Oh, woof. Yeah, I was half right.
Yeah. So Matt had Ravens and Niners. I had you had half right, dude. I had fucking the Rams and the Bills. What the hell was I thinking? So I don't know. I just, sometimes you just fall into the trappings of you want to be right and do something a little different and you're going with your gut feelings. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the Rams will actually they'll still be good for a couple of years as long as Stafford's healthy and doing well. So, but yeah, that was awful. So those are our awful Super Bowl predictions. So hope everybody had a great Super Bowl. Congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning their back-to-back Super Bowls. First team since the New England Patriots in the early 90s to do it, or in the early 2000s, I should say, to do it. So good for them. Don't look like they're going away anytime soon. So, they'll probably be back again next year and back in the hunt next year. So please stay healthy, Joe Burrow. You are our only hope.
Pretty much.
Literally, like we were talking about this. So for right now, for Mahomes, just how good he is, the only people to beat him are Brady and Burrow, and that's it. Like that's it. And one guy's retired and not coming back.
The Green Bay Packers beat the Chiefs pretty good this year, so I'll take that.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. That was a pretty controversial ending. Do you not remember that? So
no, the game was in hand the whole time, and then there was controversial calls on both ends.
Yeah,
like that when Mahomes was still in bounds and they gave him free 15 yards when he got hit. Like, come on.
Oh, that was bullshit.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, it does. I felt the same. I'm like, when they didn't call that, I was like, makeup call. I was like, and that's fair. But yeah. All right, cool. So housekeeping done. Our little sports digression there. Where can people find us? Matt, where can people find you?
Check me out at, Matthew Tyler is my personal stuff. But obviously I'm pretty much only ever use the other podcast one, which is Hops Geek News. That's where I'm primarily running socials there. But find us, man, Real Buffs. We're everywhere.
Real Buffs page on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok as @TheRealBuffs. And we're on Twitter or X or the platform formerly known as Twitter, as I like to call it.
It's always going to be Twitter, man.
Yeah. We're on that. I just got on that today, by the way. So that is @the_real_buffs. Look for the logo too. I've got it on every single one. So that is where people can find us. Stay tuned. We are going to be launching the trailer. We've done comedies now for 4 films in a row. We're shifting gears. Not a comedy next time. So I'm excited. I'm actually really excited to dive into this because I haven't seen this film since it was in theaters, actually. And also, the release of our next podcast is going to coincide with a movie that's coming out very soon here. So I'm excited about it. Yeah, we got it's actually the next couple months we're doing deep dives on some sci-fi movies.
Nice.
So I'm pumped about it. But on behalf of the Real Buffs, I'm your host, Charlie.
I am Matthias.
All right, and we will see you guys next week. Hit the trailer.
There's something happening to me. There's something awakening in my mind. I can't control it.
What did you see?
There's a crusade coming. Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Yes.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain. You inherit too much power. You have proven you can rule yourself. Now you must learn to rule others. Something none of your ancestors learned.
My father rules an entire planet.
He's losing it.
He's getting a richer one.
He'll lose that one too. Arrakis is a death trap.
Kill them. This is an extermination. They're picking my family off one by one.
Let's fight like demons.
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
I know you.
One day, the legend will be born. All of civilization depends on it.
The future. I can see it. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
My Lord Duke.
Where the fear is gone, only I will remain.
Go, go, go!